You on March 9th, 2022, when President Biden signed the death warrant on American freedom. On that day, in a hush ceremony at the White House, without the approval of Congress, the states, or the American people, Biden signed into law Executive Order 14067. Buried in his order are a few paragraphs titled Section 4. The language in Section 4 makes Order 14067 the most treacherous act by a sitting president in the history of our republic. Because Section 4 sets the stage for legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices for good.
Pause. Do you think then we need to examine Executive Order 14607? Because it's going to touch, or basically from what he's predicting, that there's something, it's a new system of living, where they watch your every movement and they understand every cent you spend and they actually control and govern it. So what are we seeing? A conflict with the United States and a communistic nation. Was that Daniel 11? Daniel 11, but that's not our study now. Revelation 13. I want you to see what she says. Wonderful events are soon to open before the world. The end of all things is at hand. Then she says, the time of trouble is about to come upon the people of God. So what is she saying is about to come upon us? A time of trouble. She says, bread words, the time of trouble is about to come upon the people of God. Then, what does the word then indicate? Okay, so question, when what she's about to say happens, do I realize, or can I now say with certainty, I'm in the time of trouble? She says then, so that means when the time of trouble breaks, then this is going to happen. This is going to be the physical evidence that you are now in the time of trouble. She says then it is that the decree will go forth prohibiting those who keep the Sabbath of the Lord to buy or sell. Pause. What are we seeing, yeah? Has something to do with the time of trouble. Speak to me based on the quotation. Buying and selling, is that money? So something about money, buying and selling has something to do with the indication of the nearness of the time of trouble. So what I am seeing, that the time of trouble is linked with money. Specifically, it's linked with buying and selling. Now, what then should I study then? If the time of trouble is going to indicate that when it comes, my case is hopeless, what should I study that indicates to me when this time comes when no man can buy or sell? That means your case is already about hopeless. But she mentions the issue of buying and selling. So what I am to see if I'm a student of prophecy, movements or pushes towards controlling every facet of my buying and my selling. Let me ask you this. What comes first? Technology to control people's buying and selling, or the Sunday law? What do you think comes first? The technology. A system must be first introduced, which has to be first introduced because there's no way you can control someone's buying and selling over the mark of the beast if you don't first introduce the system. So then what must I watch for that will indicate I'm coming to a place, I'm coming to the time of trouble? What I must look for a technology, a system, a financial system. So I must look for that's going to indicate my close of probation. I must look for a financial system that indicates the control of what? Buying and selling. Now, I don't know if anyone heard of this, but this is where God led me. This is where God led me. What do you call it? Executive order? Is that the name of it? When presidents sign things? Executive order? If we get there, by God's grace we will get there. Executive order 14067. Have you ever heard of this executive order? It was signed on March 2022. Now, friends, I had no clue that this executive order was signed. You say, what? There was no news site that covered this thing. and I saw Executive Order 14067, March 22 was signed. Now, you might say, I don't see anything. Okay, we're going to prove this. That this has something to do with the time of trouble. It has something to do with no buying, no selling. We're going to prove it. Not some conspiracy theory. We're going to show you fact. And let me say this, beloved. I was amazed when on the executive order there was a date set for the fulfillment of this so-called prediction that he made in this, or this prophecy, so to speak, or what he wanted, so to speak, when he signed March 2022. Do you know he set a date? And that date don't end in 2023. That date ends in 2022.
You on March 9th, 2022, when President Biden signed the death warrant on American freedom. On that day, in a hush ceremony at the White House, without the approval of Congress, the states, or the American people, Biden signed into law Executive Order 14067. Buried in his order are a few paragraphs titled Section 4. The language in Section 4 makes Order 14067 the most treacherous act by a sitting president in the history of our republic, because Section 4 sets the stage for legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices for good.
Pause. Do you think then we need to examine Executive Order 14607? Because it's going to touch, or basically from what he's predicting, that there's something, it's a new system of living, where they watch your every movement and they understand every cent you spend and they actually control and govern it. Let's hear what he has to say.
The storm is closing in. If my research and predictions are correct, soon there will be no more cash. The dollar we know will be dead and buried, replaced by programmable Biden bucks. The Secret Surveillance Army has been working on this for years. The U.S. Federal Reserve has been quietly partnering with scientists at MIT to develop a digital currency to replace the dollar. They call this initiative Project Hamilton. Then this year, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the clearinghouse for U.S. stocks, bonds, and other security trades, quietly launched Project Lithium. Project Lithium is testing how a digital dollar will work in the financial markets once the current dollar is dead. Project Lithium is partnering with the Digital Dollar Project, a joint effort started in 2020 between Accenture, U.S. regulators, and tech leaders to create the digital dollar. Then on March 29, 2022, just days after Biden's Order 14027 was signed, Representative Stephen F. Lynch introduced H.R. 7231, the Electronic Currency and Secure Hardware Act. This act, co-sponsored by 4 other Democrats, orders the Secretary of the Treasury to develop a digital dollar. I believe we'll see the first rollout of the new digital dollar, Biden bucks, in 2023 or 2024. And it's right on schedule.
It says from March, from the date, Biden says from the time I signed it, from 150 days, such and such. Now, how many months is 150 days? 4, 5. And then he says, I want to report back. And then he says, in 210 days, I want you all to give me a legal proposal to enforce this. He says 210 days, I want a legal proposal from you all, from his team, whichever team in the government's working with him. Now, calculate how many months would be 210 days. So if it's signed in March, come with me 7 months from March. 7 months from March? October. Do you agree, friends? March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. So in October, they must give him a legal proposal. Now, not October of 2023, of October 2022. A legal proposal for the digital dollar. Friends, that is a couple of months away. Let's hear what he has to say.
This is what I believe Section 4 of Biden's order means for all Americans. The U.S. dollar will be made obsolete. Soon your cash will be confiscated or will simply be worthless paper. The cash currency we have now will be replaced with a new programmable digital token. But the truth is, few outside the deep state recognize Biden's move for what it really is. If my predictions are correct, this is so much more sinister than simply replacing the cash dollar with a new digitized version. Friend, this new currency will allow for total control of all American citizens, because every digital dollar will be programmed by the government. That means they will be able to turn on or turn off your money at will.
Friends, did you hear that? Question, does that fit Bible prophecy? That's what we've been saying. They cannot control our buying and selling unless they have a system introduced where they can monitor and switch it off and on as they wish. And he's saying that Executive Order 14067 is exactly what it's going to produce. And that's a couple of months away. Actually, it started in March. He signed it in March.